Hello and Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome back to another episode. This is part two of our episode on optimizing life as a Muslim youth. We hope you enjoy.
I just want to quickly pick up on some habits that you said that you've built up about meditating, the slow breathing, and also salah that comes as part of, that can be considered part of meditation as well. So taking that time to really ground your mind and your body is very important. And I think the breathing technique that you said, I kind of use it with my clients too, and it's a very good technique to calm your central nervous system. So if you're feeling anxious, especially before a busy working day or before you go to school or anything like that, it's very good I think it's like the quickest way to calm your nervous system. And there are different breathing techniques. So the 4 into 8, there's like the hand breathing, so many different techniques. So the hand breathing is one that we use with kids usually. So it's like look at your hand and then you can trace your hand. So you do like inhale for 1 second and then breathe out, but you just kind of trace your hand in like a steady way so that it's a steady way of breathing in and out and it helps you really calm down. Um, but yeah, I think Salah is also one of like the grounding techniques. So really for your body and your mind. So placing your body in different positions, like going down, placing your forehead on the floor has been proven to be something that helps with relaxation, like physiologically. So there is a lot of benefit to what you are doing and the habits that you're doing. And sometimes we don't even know, like people tell us to just meditate, breathe, and like pray, but what is it actually doing? It's good to know like what these different activities are doing for us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there is a research as well, right? That had indicated that whenever you place your head onto the ground, uh, whatever electrical discharge was there in your body, like electrical charges, actually get discharged directly to the ground when we place our foreheads to the ground. So that's very interesting and fascinating because Islam has been teaching this, and science is just, I think, and this is something that one of my guests had spoken about this on my podcast, where he said, science is trying to catch up to Islam because Islam had already given out the foundation as well. There's one interesting thing that I want to follow up with you guys, and since you guys are an expert on this, I think it's interesting because I've heard this for the first time. You spoke about that hand breathing.
Mhm.
Um, how does this work? Is this specifically for kids? How old are these kids? I think this could be beneficial for parents that are probably listening.
Yeah, so it's usually for kids because it's a very visual way for them to see what they're doing. But we anyone can use it, like adults, kids as young as 4 years. So reception kids, 4 to 5 years old, they use it. There's also like belly breathing. So you place your hand on your chest and your belly, and then like you notice that you're going up and going down. So very like
Hmm.
visual and tactile ways of um breathing, I think. Um, yeah. Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
that one we tell to my clients. I work with adults over the age of 18. So what you're meant to do is, yeah, place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. And essentially you're meant to feel the hand on your belly moving up and down and not the one on your chest because we're meant to be taking breaths from deeper and not
Mhm.
shallow breaths. So the breaths that we take from here are a bit more
Yeah.
shallow from your chest. And that's why you kind of get like tension in the shoulders when you're feeling quite stressed. So practicing that is quite hard to do belly breathing,
Mm.
but it does require a lot of practice. And essentially, yeah, we're meant to be taking deeper breaths to just help ourselves.
Interesting. That's good to know. And this is to calm the kids down, like their nervous system. Is that the intent, or is there a specific reason why you train kids to do that?
So it's mainly part of the coping strategies when you get a bit anxious.
Hmm.
And sometimes also can be grounding. So getting back to the moment. So when you're a bit anxious or if you're feeling a bit low and you have like recurring negative thoughts, to bring yourself back into the moment and to help calm your nervous system, we do that. So breathing techniques is one of the coping strategies. And
Yeah, like a distraction technique, which can be
yeah.
quite cool. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, makes sense.
So yeah, second point to reflect on. So how can we keep our deen the foundation of our lives in this fast-paced society?
Oh, again, I'm not a scholar, so I'm not going to pretend like one. I will leave the scholarship to the scholars.
Mhm.
Um, but I think as a Muslim, how can you keep something as a foundation? I think before we place anything as the foundation, I think I'll go back to the same thing because I try to hammer the same point over and over again because it all goes back to you. Who are you? What are you trying to do? Why you want to do something? And I think you need to first understand, why do you believe in Islam?
Mm,
Is it because you were born in a Muslim family? Is it because you discovered Islam? If it was because you're just doing it because you were born in a Muslim family, then I think you should ask yourself, what if you were born in another religion? Would you find your way back to Islam, or would you just stick on to the religion of your forefathers and parents? I think that's a very difficult question and can also be scary because then you're trying to question your own belief system. You're trying to challenge your own self. You're trying to break your own values at times, right? And
Mm.
before we get into the foundation, the foundation is really strong when you know that you believe in this and it's the truth. However, if the foundation is not strong and you're just doing it for the sake of doing it because you were born in a family and that family followed that religion for decades and years, then there is no solid foundation there, right? Because what if someone actually questions your beliefs? How do you defend yourself? And then you will feel that what the person is asking that actually is making sense, but I don't have a ground to defend. That's not a very strong place to be in. And I think as Muslims, what we need to do first is ask ourselves that question as to why do you do certain things? Why do you believe in Islam? Is it because of your family, or is it because you've discovered the truth? If it's because only of your family, then I would recommend and encourage you to go ahead and start reading. Start with Quran. That's the best book you can read. And Quran is such an amazing book. Like the entire book, as all of us know, it's a rhetoric text, right? It uses so many questions in so many ways, the metaphors. The beauty about Quran is that it doesn't give you answers. It'll throw questions at you, and then you have to answer it yourself. You have to figure things out. And that's how I discovered Islam. Even though I was born in a Muslim family, at a phase in my life, I realized that, what, I just believe Islam because I'm born Muslim. I did not have any solid foundation, and I'm someone that likes to stay up to trend, understand science, research, and I'm always constantly reading. And then when I read more and more, I was going more towards science. I saw the proofs around how the world is formed, Big Bang, right? The evolution theory. And I started believing science more. I started giving more precedence, more importance to science and keeping Islam away because I thought, what, it doesn't make sense. Science is telling me everything, and Islam is just giving me some, and any other religion for that matter. And I was like, science is what is the actual truth. But when I started diving more deep into science and research and astrology, and when we get into those stars and galaxies, all of these scientists at the end actually said that, what, we don't know what's happening. Yes, Big Bang happened, but why did it happen?
Mhm.
No one knows that answer. Who created that Big Bang? So for something to happen, there has to be, like, there is, I think, a Newton law that says for every action there has to be there's an opposite reaction. So for a Big Bang to happen, there needs to be someone that initiated it. Just nothing can come from zero. For zero to be there, someone had to place that zero. And then there were a lot of questions then that kind of were bothering me around why this thing and that thing. Science is not giving me the right answers. And it was a very difficult place because then I was almost kind of an atheist because I did not believe in religion. I just thought it's all a way to control people. But then while I was researching all of this, I also started picking up books, religious scripts, Vedas, Bible, Quran, and I was reading all of this in mix and match. And Quran kind of really appealed to me because it started, instead of me trying to find answers, it started throwing questions at me, which I never expected. And I was like, why is this telling me this way? Why is it asking me? I'm asking you for answers, but it's instead asking me questions, things like, where are you headed? Can't you see the signs if you look at the sky, the stars that we have made? And then there is so much evidence. And now when I compare, and then I compared it with science, where science is actually, like, for example, the explanation of an embryo, right, is amazing when you look at in Quran. Almost described 1400 years ago, which was not even mentioned like in early 200 year back. That's when science discovered it and they were able to expand. Same thing with these mountain pegs, uh, same things with the galaxies. And it was striking to me to really understand that, you know what, Quran actually is actually indicating that. And the best part around why end of the day I was able to get convinced on Islam was that Islam was the only religion that was saying and agreeing to all the previous prophets. It wasn't like any other religion that said my prophet, or let's say if you go to Christianity, they say Jesus Christ is God, right? Without acknowledging Moses and other prophets. However, Islam was the only religion that actually included all of these other prophets. And that was my question. I knew if there is a God, that God had to be present from day one till last day, and he would have, because he would not leave one nation misguided. He would, for some reason, ensure that every single nation has a message, because that's when he's a true God, right? If he's a true God, he would ensure that from day one till the last day, he's giving out signs, he's helping people so that they could find their way back. And then Islam made sense because it spoke about Adam, it spoke about Prophet Noah, it spoke about Jesus, and all of those prophets sent to every other nation, and inclusively adding all of them in under one single roof. And I really realized that, you know what, Islam is the only religion today that is actually uh, not only saying they are the right, but also acknowledging why people believe the way believe, why a lot of nations went misguided. Because, you know, instead of worshiping the God, they started worshiping the prophets themselves. And then the signs in itself, the proofs in itself in Islam is what actually makes it more powerful. And now when I, when I actually identify that, this is the truth, look at the kind of evidence that exists in Islam, I was convinced. And when you are convinced, and then you're convinced from your heart, then I don't think anyone can break your foundation, and then your foundation is strong. And then with that, you constantly keep building up. You read more books, you go and read science books, you go and look at latest research, and it just revalidates the same thing over and over again. On my one of my previous podcast, I did mention that, how now science, when they were trying to explain infinity, they actually spoke about how, so the physicists that actually indicated. So there's this documentary on Netflix called as A Trip to Infinity. Have you guys watched it, by the way?
No, no.
No? Okay. So it's a very fascinating documentary. It talks about, so that they were talking about what is infinity, and all of these physicists talking about comparing people's life with uh, the universe life and so on and so forth. But one thing was really interesting in that. They mentioned something like, physicists actually explained that if you take an apple and put that apple inside a box, okay, for an infinite amount of time, since it's infinity, there is no end, right? Infinity means it just goes on and on. So the physicist said, if you take an apple and put it inside a box, and as we know, after some days or a few weeks, the apple would start decaying, right? And after a few months and years, the physicist said that there will come a phase where that apple would just vaporize. It'll just disappear. it'll no longer be there inside the box. It'll become small atoms, and just like how the universe is, it'll just go away, it'll vanish. But after some more amount of time, there will come a phase when that apple will come back to its original state of being an apple again, which
Mm.
means even though the apple was ripe, it vanished, it'll come back to life. And physicists are saying this, please note. And that is what Quran says. Allah says in the Quran, right? That I will ensure, I will, for people that think they will not be reborn, I will ensure you're born from all the way to your fingertips to all the way to your head. Because that it makes sense. Because if it's infinity, when Apple can come back to life, why can't humans? If it's infinity.
Mm.
So a lot of these things, when you start reflecting on things, it just makes your deen more and more stronger, because then you're a more conscious uh, Muslim. And when you're a more conscious Muslim, then I think your foundation itself is strong. And when your foundation is strong, you'll be able to guide other people as well. So I
Mhm.
think for us to ensure the foundation is strong, start asking yourself questions, start diving into Islam, try to learn more about Islam, interact with people, learn about science, see the similarities, what is science saying. And I think in itself, once you get into that journey, you
Mhm.
will start seeing your Islam and your faith becoming more and more powerful day by day.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a lot of really good points then. I think, yeah, it's that question. Like, it is a very difficult question to ask yourself, but I think it is important to kind of have those points where you reevaluate your life, yourself. I think we all know that we're all here for like a bigger reason, and it's just about figuring out what that reason is. And we kind of do like a similar thing in CBT work, like with clients, kind of regularly setting goals for yourself or having moments like at the end of the month where you reevaluate, have you done so and so? Have you been working towards this goal? How can you kind of reevaluate that? What can you do different? So kind of, I guess, having, yeah, regular moments like that where you ask yourself, why am I here? Am I just, you know, um, a Muslim because the family is Muslim, or do I actually want to, you know, use it for a better reason? So yeah.
Yeah, and I think we all have our own journeys towards our religion, even if we are born Muslim. So like you said, just reevaluating everything. And so you said that people should research and um meet other people, read books. What other ways do you recommend that they kind of reconnect with their religion and keep that as a base, um, while also keeping in mind the hundreds that other things that we have to do in like this world.
Yeah, yeah. I think there are a couple of things you can do, and I think this differs from a person to person, because obviously there are different type of learners, right? Some people learn by listening, some people learn by reading, some people are visual learners, they want to see things. So I think that's why I always go back to that, right? Like, who are you? Identify what is your mode of learning. Because once you know this is what appeals to you, if you're more like a reader, then I would recommend please go ahead and start reading books. Start with the Quran, the translations, right? Start with that. If you're more like a listener, then I would say start listening to lectures on YouTube. Start listening to podcasts that talk about this, that actually have discussions around. Uh, Start from basics, I would say, right? Don't get into the fiqh, the differences. Start off small. Start off with basic stuff like salah. What's the importance of salah? What's the metaphysics of salah? What's the benefit of that? Uh, People that are discovering Islam, why did they, and especially revert stories, I think are also very powerful.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of revert stories, and I've seen, you know, those people, I think, oftentimes realize the value of Islam
Mhm.
even more sometimes than just people that are more born Muslims, because they are someone that went out for a search. They actually went out of their way looking for God, and they discovered God. So when they talk, it's very powerful for you to listen. So listen to those. Um, Surround yourself with people that are, I would say, not on your level, but a level above you,
Mm.
so that you are always growing. If you are the smartest person in that room, they say, right, you're in the wrong room. So understand that you need to have people that are religious scholars. Pick probably a few scholars that appeal to you, resonate with you the most. I know there are a few scholars that resonate with me the most, and I listen to them. I listen to almost all the scholars, but there are a few that I hold close to my heart because I know what they're saying makes sense. It makes sense to me, so I stick to that. So I think finding your spiritual guides, like finding some scholars that appeal to you, listen to them on a frequent basis. Avoid differences of opinion. We don't need to get into that. We are not scholars. Let's not waste our life away. Keep it simple, salahs, and just read from all of these different avenues that you are. And at the same time, try to manage your world as well. This doesn't mean that you leave your world aside and then only focus on become a spiritual guru and get, if you want to do that, sure, by all means. But uh, let's look at the best person on this planet, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? He took both hand in hand. He was someone who did his worldly duties as well as uh, prepared for the afterlife. I think that's a very good example for us. So rather than leaving everything and just going into one single realm, I think it's let's try to balance both of these together.
Yeah, and I think Islam is about finding that balance for what works for you. So everyone has different levels of how much they can delve into different things. And as long as you're consistent, I think that's what matters the most. Consistency is key in the long run. So yeah. But thank you. Very interesting and very helpful, informative tips. I think I learned something new as well. So thanks for that.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. We will hopefully be releasing part 3 of this episode next month, inshallah.